Hello, everybody. This is Joshua Hatton with One Nation Under Whiskey podcast. I'm joined today, and as always, by my good friend, my business partner, the lustful.
Nope.
For sandwiches, you sure are. Like, yeah, I just mentioned it, and you're like, oh, hello. Ears perk. Eyebrows
boy.
start to twitch a little bit.
Oh boy, the nefarious and lustful.
I'm joined by Jason Johnston Yellen, but this is a bit different because I'm joined by Jason Johnston Yellen not on the East Coast where we usually see one another over the Zooms or FaceTimes, but actually in person and on the West Coast, sitting in your mother-in-law's study place.
Yeah,
room,
lounge, TV room. Yeah, call it what you will. This is remarkable. I could literally reach out and touch you.
I'm touching your foot right now.
And I wish you would stop. That was unnecessary. So yeah.
And especially after I called you lustful.
I feel like there might have been a bit of projection in there. Like, that's how that was looking.
Jason.
But as you rightly say, we are out and about. We are in the world. Mm-hmm. We are experiencing people. We are experiencing places. And we are looking into one another's eyeballs without an electronic medium coming between us.
I thought you were going to say we are experiencing people.
We're free.
We are going to places. I was waiting for the things because it's people's places and things. Right?
Is that Dr. Seuss?
Sure. Redfish, tubelish, fish, blue fish, who fish?
Flawless. Pro level. I feel like you still reading those to your kids more than a decade ago.
So you know what was, I mean, this trip so far has been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird because, came to LA, and one of the things that you need to do when you come to LA, assuming you can get downtown, is go to 7 Grand, which is what we did.
Very much so.
But it's been 26 months of lockdown and then into a place where there are no masks and it's squeezing cheeks and there's people elbowing you and it's
noisy.
It's noisy.
You can see people breathing near you.
Yeah. It was like going back in time to the before times.
For the record, I've always been against people breathing near me. I would much rather people didn't breathe near me.
Especially if it's open-mouthed.
Right? Or talk. Or look at me.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Got it.
I just got a little bit LA there. Sorry, which side of the rope am I on?
I don't even know what that means, but anyway.
VIP?
Oh, which side of the rope am I? I was thinking like nooses and things.
Oh, Lord. Joshua Hand.
I'm sorry.
We're in Southern California.
Yeah.
It's all right here. It's all right.
So
you're in a safe place.
We're at 7 Grand.
7 Grand.
We're ordering beers.
Ordering beer.
We're ordering single cask nation pours.
Wasn't that lovely to see on the shelf, that little SCN situation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, six or 7 bottles.
A few retail bottles.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few online bottles with the original style label, not the redesign. Mm-hmm. Cheeky. Very cheeky. Do you remember one in particular?
I do. Our undisclosed 6-year-old from a second fill, PX Barrique.
Mm-hmm.
But listen, the reason I bring up 7 Grand
yes, sir.
in the before times feeling.
Can we come back to talking about the undisclosed 6?
You know what? Go ahead. If you want to talk about bright stuff, I'll bring in the dark.
No, do the dark first, and then I'll bring in the light stuff.
But right, so it was so very odd after 26 years of not doing things.
26 years? I know it felt like 26 years.
Of 26 months of not doing things to doing things as if COVID had never been a thing.
Yeah. Young people have really embraced the idea that COVID never happened. And I've even seen it in my local supermarket. I don't know if I mentioned this even in a recent episode, but we obviously have James Madison University where we are and where I grocery shop. The students go by there as well.
Yeah.
On Sunday mornings, nobody under 25 is wearing a mask. Nobody under 25. Now, listen, they don't have to. It's, we're vaccinated, we're boosted, we've got much lower numbers than we've ever had. I'm not being the mask police saying, excuse me, young person, but I'd really like you to put a mask on. But when you're of a certain age... Oh, wait a second. I wasn't going to say that. So let me say, when you're of a certain profession, you and I have talked about this.
Yes, we have.
Like you and I got real focused on the old COVID when they said you could lose your sense of smell and your sense of taste.
Yeah.
And that's
right? Scary.
That's
business.
our company. That's our career. That's everything we do in this world.
Yep.
And so even now, in the hopeful post times rather than the before times that we talk about, I'm still a little bit careful. I still have my mask on. I'm still vaccinated.
I'm a lot of bit careful.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And so being in 7 grand and embracing the world of young people was a lot, an awful lot. But, that old fake it till you make it, I had a little bit of that. I too am going to pretend that this is the post times. Yeah. And maybe if I keep pretending, I'll finally buy into it and we will start moving on with life, just like we've come out to the West Coast.
Yeah.
Just like we have done some pourings. We have had some meetings. We are trying to embrace the afters.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never liked that term fake it till you make it. Because I don't think that's what it is. I think it is that getting back to, and we've talked about it. Everybody's talking about it. We need to get back to some version of normality or normalcy, whichever version of the word you want to use. The problem is getting to that for some people like ourselves is not comfortable. It just simply isn't comfortable. But we will get there, right? It's You go through a period of time not shaking people's hands and not hugging them and like, what does that look like again? And so anyway, being there was very cool because it was like we're in a proper bar.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. With good people. But it's uncomfortable and weird and
loud
and but
which had nothing to do with COVID. It was just loud.
No, just your age. That had everything to do with your age.
Just too fucking noisy. Could you all just keep it down? Band, could you sing just a little quieter, please?
So the things that I think helped us to get through it, or at least helped me to get through it, was the fact that we had our dear Elijah with us. We had Johnny Baldray and his wife Erica.
Johnny of Whisky and Donuts, for anybody who enjoys doing Google searches. Maybe you already know him. He's doing fantastically well with Whisky and Donuts.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, we'll talk about that a bit more in a second. But having them there and drinking those single cask nation whiskeys that I want you to talk about did help that along. It helped, sitting in that booth and focusing a bit more on our group.
Correct.
And a bit less on all of the craziness going on in that room.
Correct.
I mean, it was jam-packed. So that personally helped me in that undisclosed 6-year-old Isla from the PX Barrique. We bottled that 7 years ago, 2015. And that was, that was a before times thing.
Very much so.
And so it was really nice to revisit a historical whiskey for us, and also one that was historical from the standpoint of being able to buy that cask for a decent price, right? Remembering the cost of that cask and remembering that we were able to sell it on for a decent price. I want to say it was maybe $85 for that Isla
I can smell someone's about to go negative.
No, and I'll just and it was just nice.
And I'll
to say,
leave it here. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
I'm not going to bring up the fact that cask prices nowadays are suck and it's garbage town and
I'd never start an IB now.
So what was it about our time at $7,000? Whether it was the company, whether it was the whiskeys or the beer, like, what was your take on it?
It was all of the above. And I really like the point you're making a moment ago about once we moved to the booth, we had been sitting at the bar and placing some orders. It was busy and we were being nudged and it felt like the room was closing in around us. Once we moved off to that booth, as much as we were in direct line of the sound waves from the band.
Oh my gosh, that woman was singing so loud.
So loud.
And so off key. Go on.
So loud. I'm just pleased Tim Gullicksrud wasn't in the room because anyone who's written in to talk about your quote-unquote perfect pitch
Near perfect pitch.
would not have done well with what was happening in that room on that
He
night.
would not. No, Tim Gullicksrud, longtime listener, music teacher.
Long-time complimenter, long-time good person.
Oh my gosh. He would have practiced the fine art of self-defenestration.
And the windows are so small.
It's so small.
It's so small. But to your point,
Yeah.
which was once we were sitting in that booth, chatting amongst ourselves, asking questions of one another, that felt very nice and very natural and not stressful thinking about the room and the situation and all of that. And I felt like I slid right back into the prior life. Not
a bit more comfortably.
Right,
Yeah.
not worrying, even leaning in to shout into one another's ears so we could be heard over the screaming band member. But I did want to just circle back quickly to what you're saying there about that cask. Normally, if you walk into a bar in your single cask nation and you see a few offerings, you kind of split up your order, right? Hey, why don't you grab that one? I'll grab this one. Hey, maybe Elijah, you grab that one. And we bought 3 pours of the
Yes, we
undisclosed 6-year-old for 3 of us, and just savored them, and having an opportunity to savor that with Elijah, obviously celebrating him being in the company, and as you said, 2015.
Was he legal to drink?
He was.
Okay,
I thought about this when you were giving the number. He would have been 22. So he would have been 1 year into his legality, 1 complete year of legality under his belt and entering his 22nd year.
Yeah.
But it was such a great cask. And if anyone remembers from that time, it was a cheeky wee Schmaga Spulen.
Schmaggy Schmullen. Yeah, that's right.
Isla offering. Yeah, real tasty. And so that was a real treat. And again, a little bit of that historical context of our own company.
Yep.
I remember from that time period driving back from spring break with my boys, my literal children, who were 8 and 5. They weren't down there playing baseball.
Yeah.
And that was a launch that was done.
Wait, spring break or spring training?
Spring training.
Spring
Did
training.
I say spring break?
Well, yeah, you said spring break, but I imagine you meant spring training.
Well, it was actually both, because my 8-year-old would have been on spring break from the school, which allowed us to go down to spring training, but that's using the word spring a lot.
Was this Seattle days? Was this the Mariners? Where was this?
No. We moved to Virginia in 2012, so we went down to Florida. We actually watched the Nationals.
The Nationals. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Got
my
it,
youngest
got it,
is a
got it.
Nationals
Yep,
fan.
yep,
My
yep,
eldest
yep.
is a Mariners fan.
Yep.
And so coming back there, and you had made the launch online when I was still driving. And I remember that being one of our first quick sellers.
Quicker, for sure. Yeah.
Where we're even talking, 2 hours.
Yep.
And we had a sellout on that.
Yeah.
Obviously, if we released that now,
Yeah.
we'd be 2 minutes.
Oh, I see. I thought you were going to say, obviously, is because I launched it. It sold quickly. Got it.
You know, you should definitely take all the credit for launching a Schmager Spulen that sold out fantastically well. That was definitely...
It had nothing to do with the Schmager Schmool and PX Sherry.
Gosh, PX Barrique. My goodness. So again, right, historical context, before times, an original bestseller, sitting in a bar with whom we've had a terrific relationship since day one of this company.
Yep.
And to be able to sit there and enjoy that historical port with Elijah, a newer addition to this company, in a time when we're trying to come out from under our rocks and trying to travel across the country. It was a lot of things.
Yep.
But I came out of it feeling, pretty decent, like pretty brave, like I'd confronted something.
Well, there you go. You got over a fear.
Right.
Yeah, there you go. You dove off the high board. Got it. Yeah, checks out.
Yeah, a successful high dive. But $7,000 wasn't the only reason for being in LA.
It was not, and this was another thing, right? What did we do in the before times? We were at a lot of whiskey festivals or large gatherings, and so actually the number one reason that we were out here was an event called Good Ride.
Tanks for Troops.
Tanks for Troops, which is an event that Carrie Hart puts on with a gentleman by the name of Big B.
Big B, that's on his passport.
Yep. And Carrie Hart, many of you may be familiar with him with his motocross days. He also builds custom Indian bikes as well. Some of you might know him simply as being the singer Pink's husband. That's how I first got to know him, because I'm not a motocross guy. I'm not a motorcycle guy. And I know who Pink is, right? And so our good friend Johnny, who we mentioned being at $7,000 with us, happens to be good friends with them. And when this idea of having their third annual Good Ride event was being put together, they wanted Johnny to do this whiskey and donuts pairing. And Johnny was like, we should maybe do some sort of a charitable bottling, and asked us if we would be interested in working with this. And so we were. And so we bottled a bourbon specifically for this event, exclusively for this event. Just to be very clear, as we're talking about this is not something that anyone's going to see showing up on store shelves or on our website or anything like that. This is an exclusive charity raising bottle for Good Ride. But that's why we were out there. We wanted to support Johnny and his friends, and Tanks for Troops, were...
they were beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely
Those were
gorgeous.
some incredible designs. It had been a long auction, again raising the funds for charity, with the auction closing during the Good Ride event held live in LA. And that was an exciting thing to be a part of.
Yep.
But yeah, kudos to Johnny. I know he worked his butt off. This is the part where I always make our jobs sound more difficult than they are. He put together 8 wonderful donut and whiskey pairings.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yeah.
Westward was in the room, Fukano, Oishi, Glenfiddich.
And then ourselves, we did the bourbon, and we also had our Wolf Island bottling, and Greg Schwartz, who is the director of the Water of Life film, along with Alphonse came down.
Alphonse was there.
And Greg helped us pour that. And
It was so cool saying to people, like, either have a taste of this bourbon that's being used to raise $20,000 for the Good Ride charity, or go down there and taste that Wolf Island single malt scotch that's being poured by the director of the Water of Life film.
yeah, that's okay.
I'll be honest, that felt a little bit like an LA moment.
Oh yeah, that was. I'm on this side of the rope, like you had said, Jason. Now I get the reference. There you go.
I don't get experiences like that when I'm sitting in my office in the Shenandoah Valley.
No. And you know what? It was, and I know Elijah got to speak with her. Unfortunately, we didn't, but Pink was in the room. and had her mask on and everything. But there she was, and it's
And for those who know the name or know the band, the Dirty Heads were there.
Yeah.
Got a chance to speak to one of their members, collaborators, Sean. It was great chat with him as well.
Yep.
And there was just a ton of great people with a ton of enthusiasm. And a bit like you're talking about $7,000 there, you could tell people were happy to be out the house.
Yes.
They were happy to be at an event.
Yes.
There was an excitement to it. And I had a ton of incredibly easy conversations with people I was meeting for the very first time.
Oh, but that's you in your zone, right? That's you in your happy place. You like to get bits. You like to talk with people, learn about them.
I do. I love learning about people's palates.
So my question to you, really quickly, is: did the event feel more comfortable than being in a bar?
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
It was a huge room. It was a huge space.
Yeah.
All the tables were nicely spread out. The tanks were in the middle of the room. People were flowing around. No table was ever overwhelmed. But for me, kind of glancing around the room, all of us stayed busy all night long.
Yeah.
And very high ceilings. It was there was a different feeling being in a venue space.
Yeah.
That was your experience too?
Yeah. It felt better, and like you had said, a wider room, a bigger room, the ceilings, right? I was a bit more comfortable.
Before you move on there, we're actually going to launch a half episode the day after this episode.
Yes, we are. So, I was going to bring that up in the news, but I'm glad you brought it up.
I was going to mention it here and then just circle back to remind the listeners in the news.
There you go. Good. So once we're done with our interviewee,
The reason for the season.
You will want to listen to that news because it's going to be fun. So today we have someone that we've known from even before we started the company, from our earlier blogging days.
The before times.
Ewan Morgan, who is with Diageo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was part of their Masters of Whisky program earlier on.
Yep.
His role has changed a little bit, and he'll talk about that in the interview. One of the things that he did helped to launch the Orphan Barrel line, right? So any fans of that, this is your guy. And what I like about Ewan is we're not just friends with him. We're friends with his dad and Bill, the wonderful Bill Morgan. And one of the things that I enjoyed about this interview, and I will tell you, Jason, listeners, I will tell you, A, this is one of the funniest interviews I think we've ever had, but B, in talking with you and in hearing about his family history, both past and now moving on with his own son in the industry, it was great to hear that generation after generation after generation history of the Morgans within whiskey. And I just found that all to be fascinating.
But the other thing I was going to throw in is, here we are talking about the historical context of that undisclosed 6-year-old in the PX Barrique. And now here we have the historical context that flows through a whiskey family. And exploring that, unpacking that a little bit in this interview, it felt really wonderful. And I honestly, I would have loved to have heard even more about that family and those extensions. But we had a bunch of things to get on to, so I understand why we kept moving. But what he shared was really, really excellent.
Yeah, and so last things we'll say, and then we'll hand it over, is that this is a longer interview.
Is it?
It is a longer interview.
Okay.
And
a longer introduction for that longer interview.
You're welcome, Jason, listeners. But what I found interesting, and I was texting Ewan the other day as I was editing and letting him know I was just laughing my friggin' ass off. And he agreed. He said, we just scratched the surface. we barely touched on things. And so we will have Ewan on again. And hopefully this, next time we speak with him in person, over beers, over drams, over food, good times, great oldies. So, without further ado, we welcome the wonderful Ewan Morgan. Jason, I've led off the past two conversations. I'm going to let you take charge with this interview.
Wow. Gosh. He
I'm
ever
giving.
puts me in charge, ever.
I'm a giving man.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I hear.
So like the kids washing the dishes, I'm going to do a terrible job of this, and then he's going to take it back from me for the rest of time.
That's why he's doing it.
Oh gosh. I don't know.
It's all part of his malignant plan all along. He's thrown me under the bus with that reference to that infamous video, and then now he's throwing you under the bus. I could see this being a testament to just how mean he is.
His malignant plan is like the next emo band. His malignant plan.
Yeah. Are they playing at that god-awful festival in Vegas?
Yes, they are.
Oh.
It's Fall Out Boy, His Malignant Plan, My Chemical Romance, and a few others.
Yeah. Who doesn't love a bit of emo? Me.
So let's begin at the end.
Okay.
Clearly, you're a well-traveled man. How many tastings would you do in the case of a normal year? And then, what has COVID been like for you? COVID living.
That's a really interesting question, and the answer is somewhat surprising. In a normal year, I've never counted, but over 100, easily.
Sure.
In a normal year,
Yeah.
from staff trainings to whiskey clubs to seminars to dinners, etc. 100 plus. With the onset of this global plague that we're all still in the throes of, that number actually increased. And it went to a virtual scenario. And I was doing a lot of distributor trainings, internal trainings, onboardings for new staff for Diageo, as well as all the whiskey club stuff, as well as like companies who would come to Diageo and say, hey, we need a whiskey experience, for example. So that number, I would say, went up maybe 20%.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
Yeah, I haven't counted it, but yeah, no, I noticed it went up, exponentially to begin with, and it kind of plateaued a little bit as people got Zoom fatigue, and we're now in year 2 of this, but it hasn't gone away. I'm still doing a lot of these.
how did you find the differences for yourself?
All right, so the differences are. I'm trying to think of the diplomatic way of putting this. Doing Zoom calls sucks. That's the diplomatic way of putting it, because you don't have the human connection. Like you can't like pick up on these kind of micro body language things that you would do if you were presenting live. Sure. You don't have the same rapport. You can't bounce off of people in the same way that you could in a live situation. So the dynamic isn't as dynamic. If that makes any sense. But the good thing is, people are stuck at home. You've got a fairly captive audience, so they are listening. And then you can reinforce that with like visuals and decks, and then offering like downloads and things like that. So in terms of the materials that you can give across it immediately, that's a very handy thing to do. But for me, I'm a big proponent, a big fan of like the live performance and giving it your all. And it's not that I don't give it my all with Zoom calls, because I do. But, it's very different. Talking face-to-face is completely different to talking to someone on a screen. Although we're having some good banter here. If the three of us were in a room right now, like we'd be drinking a whiskey together, we would have had a chat beforehand. There would have been a slightly different like dynamic, a bit more, easy, ozy and whatnot. And I don't know. It's just different. It's hard. It's hard to verbalize because I'm not very clever, but I'm sure a very intelligent.
We'll be
person
circling
can
back
come
to
up
that shortly. Don't you
with
worry.
with better words.
I think one of the upsides to doing the Zooms, though, is you can do all of your events without pants, which is really on the plus side.
Yeah, I'm not wearing any right now.
That's
I'm glad this is audio only. This is for our listeners. They don't have to see
I
what
am
we can currently see.
full disclosure.
Oh, put it away, Ewan.
Look,
Put it away.
Look at jeans. I am wearing pants. Diageo HR department.
So in fact, he's pantsless, but he is wearing socks. That's classy.
Yeah.
Classy
Yeah,
gent.
no pants and a wry smile.
So
Oh, yeah.
I think the question that people are now starting to bring up is A, why is he not wearing pants? But B, what do you assuming this will come to an end, and it might be this year, it might be 5 years, but when this comes to an end, do you think your job will be a combination of in-person stuff that you used to do and Zoom stuff that you've started doing during the pandemic? Or do you think Zoom will go away completely and you'll be done with it?
No, I don't think it's going to go away. I think it's now woven into the fabric of what we do, and people see it as a useful tool, and it is a useful tool. But the live stuff obviously is going to come back. But if I have to do like a general sales meeting or GSM in Diageo parlance, it's much easier for me to like jump on and Zoom and present rather than go down to, I don't know, Greenville or wherever. So being able to knock these things out and have like a wide distribution and the immediacy of it, and also the fact that you can then record it and people can watch it afterwards. So if they've missed anything, they can review it. Whereas with the live situation, you can't really do that. So there is benefits to it. Do I think it's going to go away? As I said, no, I don't think Zoom is going to go away. But I will see it. It will plateau. It will dip down as we're out and about. And I'm already out and about in market. I've been out and about in market for well over a year. So
Okay.
yeah.
What's that looking like?
yeah. How's it different? Because obviously it's different, but how so?
Yeah, smaller audiences, for one. Not in stature. I'm not just talking to munchkins these days.
Just doing
But,
tastings in
small-
Hobbiton.
Yeah, they're not the most attentive bunch. They always seem to be looking for something else. I don't know. Anyway,
Elevensies.
so it rings. I don't know. Precious. Where are we going with this? Oh, yeah. So the audiences have been much smaller, but I've been doing like consumer events, staff trainings, dinners. I've been on a national tour with VinePair doing like high-end single malt dinners. I'm about to go to California to do another one. I'm off to California next week for 9 days to work Super Bowl and then do some dinners and do some staff trainings. Doing a Mortlich masterclass whilst I'm out there as well, doing a staff training for $7,000 down in San Diego. So I try and pack my trips as much as possible. Just got back from Boston. I was doing a Burns dinner up there.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, people are desperate to get out and kind of latch back onto, quote unquote, some kind of normality after 2 years of this pandemic. People are chomping at the bit to get back out there. So I would say, as soon as people are comfortable with it, it's going to be a different world. Obviously, there's a lot of people who have that trepidation of going out. Certainly in an environment where you're going to have multiple people in a condensed space, and I get that. But then you've got other people who are triple vaxxed or they've had COVID and their antibodies are through the roof, and they're more comfortable to be in that kind of environment. So it's been different for sure. Have I still enjoyed it? Absolutely. Was I happy to get out there and do it? Definitely. I dodged the COVID bullet for 2 years and got it just before Christmas.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But you know what? I lost a ton of weight, so I'm not that mad about it.
I was going to say, you're looking quite svelte these days.
Silver linings.
Oh, you're making me blush. Yeah. No, I'm a little thinner than I used to be. And healthier, for sure. I go to the gym every day. But so it's not all. It's not all. It's not all COVID weight drop. There is some blood, sweat, and tears have gone into this beautiful physique that you're now ogling.
The fact that you're bleeding
Talking
at the
about you,
gym has
Jason,
me
here.
nervous. That really has me
Bleeding? Yeah. But you get nipple plasters now, so that's gone away. It's fine.
I'll bring us out the cul-de-sac. Where your family?
Do they know what a cul-de-sac is in this country? Yeah, know your audience, Jason.
Oh, Joshua lives in a cul-de-sac.
live in a
Everybody knows
cul-de-sac.
that. Everybody knows.
I live cul-de-sac adjacent, but I am not on a cul-de-sac.
Is there some kind of snobbery about cul-de-sacs in your community? I don't live in a cul-de-sac. I live adjacent to a cul-de-sac. I'm not one of those cul-de-sac riffraff.
We call them
Joshua's an
cul-de-sacs.
everyman. Were the family happy to see the back of you once you started going back on the road, or were they still eager to keep you home? I would imagine there were tears. There were tears at the door when you left on your first trip again.
Yeah, tears of joy, I would think.
Yeah, they were okay seeing the back of you.
Yeah, probably. I'm a lot. So I'd be glad to see the back of me as well, to be perfectly honest. But you know what? Fun fact. Might not even be a fun fact, but it's a fact. When pandemic kicked in, as of the April, when my travel was at that point banned, going into April, that was the longest I'd been at home for over 10 years.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yep.
Yeah. So readjusting, and you guys travel all the time as well. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's a different world going from, I traveled 80% of the year, and then all of a sudden the huge handbrake came on, and it was zero, and I was at home all the time, down here in my office and cranking out Zoom calls and stuff. But I was still getting under my wife's feet and annoying her no end, and so yeah, that adjustment, and weirdly, figured out that we did actually love each other. So there was a good side to it as well.
You're just full of silver linings today. COVID, weight loss, loves his wife.
They call me the good news bear. That was my nickname in jail. Joke. Never been in jail. Nam. Never been in Nam. Can't do that one either. But yeah, no. In all seriousness, it was definitely an adjustment for all of us. Thankfully, my wife is an angel and puts up with me, and I'm not an angel by any sense of the word or meaning. So yeah, we're still here. We're still married. Thankfully, and my son has left home. He doesn't live here anymore. He lives in Edinburgh. He actually works at the Johnny Walker Experience in Edinburgh.
Oh, how is your son not still 10?
I thought he was 10.
How has time passed?
It's called aging. You may have heard of this.
That's remarkable.
Children grow up. He's 21.
I thought he was NAS. Your child is an NAS?
No, he is 21. And my daughter will be 18 in August. She finishes school. So we're going to be empty nesters this summer.
That's absolutely...
Not to rub it in your face, you two with younger kids.
Yeah, you
much longer.
They're not 14 and 15 forever. They do go beyond that age.
Yeah. So the teenage years, 10 out of 10, do not recommend. Once you get past that, they turn into rounded, nice, lovely human beings.
I can't wait.
Full of compassion, smart. I'm talking about me right now. They're
going to say they take it all from their mum. Yeah.
Yeah. Thankfully, they got their looks off their mum as well. They get them off me.
So
there you go.
I like that though. So your son's working at the Scotch Whisky Experience. So this
No, he's working at the Johnny Walker.
The Johnny Walker Experience. So is this 3 generations of Morgans within the whiskey industry, or does it go even further back? So your grandfather as well.
Yeah, my grandfather was the brewer at Cardew.
Oh wow! Okay, so
Yeah.
so Jason started us off with now. Could we rewind the clock back and let's talk about some of this lineage? Obviously, Jason and I, we've known you for years, we've known your dad for years, but this is my first time, and I'm guessing Jason's first time hearing about your grandfather working as a brewer at RØDE. So let's talk about some of this history there. That sounds fantastic.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, my grandfather worked at a few distilleries, so Glenelgan, Imperial, RØDE. RØDE is where he spent most of his career. And he started off working in the maltings, and then he became the head maltman. Then obviously they closed the maltings there at the end of the 60s, and then he took on the role of brewer, and he did that up until his retirement. But my dad worked there at the same time as him, and my uncles also worked there at the same time as him. So there was a large amount of Morgans at RØDE at one time. And then my cousins started working there. So yeah, it was like the Morgan mafia of Speyside who all seemed to congregate there. Then my dad moved to Cragganmore. After Cragganmore, he got a job at Tamdhu Distillery. But there's a really great picture of like my Uncle Arthur, my dad, and my grandfather, and the steps that goes up to Evan Catnick's old office.
Yeah.
In I'm sure you've seen it. My dad posts it on the Book of the Faces. But I'm not on Facebook anymore. But he is. He's prolific.
He is prolific. Your dad is a good follow on Facebook because his photography is fantastic and the old pictures that he puts up. So just some really nice history. Yeah.
And he would be upset if I didn't mention the fact he's going to be doing a photography exhibition for the Spirit Speyside Festival this summer at the Grant Hall in Rothes. So if you get bored, you can actually go next door. There's a chip shop next door and a co-op, so you can go in. Those are like the activities in Rothes: photography of old distilleries, chips, and go and buy yourself some Tunnocks tea cakes. Knock yourself out.
Sounds like a winner.
Jason's salivating right now. He's getting the Tunnocks tea cake FOMO.
Oh, I tell you, Jess just sent over some chocolate hobnobs and some chocolate digestives, and 1,100 PG tips.
Oh, really?
PG just the tips?
You can buy PG tips. Yeah, just... Oh! PG.
Sorry.
And I've been told I'm not allowed to double dunk them. So.
What? Just the tip? Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Hold on, I've been doing it wrong all along. I feel like
One-time
such an
use.
amateur.
That's what I'm told.
I didn't realize that we're going to delve into PG tip land, but I'm
you
not mad about
Tunnocks
it.
Tea cakes.
I did, and we have PG tips here as well as Tetley. Our local shop sells them. Sorry, store, Jason.
It's too expensive, Ewan. Too pricey.
Now you're just reinforcing this thrifty stereotype about the Scots.
That's why I double. That's why I double dunk.
McDuck.
A single dunk, it feels extravagant, but here we are. Anyway, so back to your family tree, back to your dad. We got to the RØDE mafia.
I feel like my mushrooms just kicked in. This just got very bizarre. But
oh yeah, this is the whole microdose section.
HR department. Right? Yeah. Let's talk about aged psilocybin. No, let's not. All right, where were we?
So your dad had made it to Cragganmore.
Yes. And then he was the youngest ever head warehouseman at Scottish Malt Distillers whilst he was there. I think basically because no one else wanted to do the job, he ended up working there. And then he moved obviously over to Tamdhu Distillery. And at the 1973, when I was born, he was in the distillery cottages there. He worked at the lab, and then he went and got his degree at Robert Gordon's in Aberdeen, and he was still working at the distillery. And then he became the maltings manager, assistant manager there. And then at the age of 16, when I was asked, in parentheses, to leave school, this is another one Diageo HR department don't want to hear about. But yeah, I was asked politely to leave school for the second time. I was asked politely to leave primary school as well at the age of 11.
Right.
So I have that. Yeah, my mother was the teacher of the school that I got expelled from first before I got booted out of Speyside High School. Anyway, I digress.
Poor woman.
That poor woman, yeah. So I then, age of 16, when I left school, I started working in the maltings when Tamdu still had Saladin box maltings. They've now since been demolished. So I was in there every morning shoveling malt, 42 tons of malt. It was a team of 6 of us would go in there. And then that would come down from the steeps, obviously, and then we would lay it down there. And once it started to germinate, up it would go and dry on the malt floor, and away it would go. But yeah, that's what I did. And I started working in the lab, doing tests on the grain as it came in, like nitrogen levels and all of that exciting stuff. And then I left that because working in production in Scotch whisky is a fairly methodical thing. You're doing the same thing day in, day out because you want consistency, obviously. But for a 16-year-old viewing, it got a little tedious because, I get bored fast. Everyone who knows me knows this fact for a fact. I then went and lived in Aberdeen. I had various jobs there. I was a postman until I got hit by a car. Then I moved to Amsterdam to recuperate.
Because there's bikes there. Right? Like, I don't want to get hit by a car, but I'll get hit by a bike.
That was the only reason I went. I wanted to build up my legs again. I haven't done a very good job of it. They still look like chickens' legs. But there's another fact about me. Horrible legs, beautiful face. So
that's the name of my next album, Horrible Legs, Beautiful Face.
Yeah, what a juxtaposition. What a situation to be in. So I did various jobs. I worked to make pizzas, was a pizza delivery driver, worked in nightclubs, all of that jazz. Went to college there for a little bit, didn't do particularly well at that. I lived in Israel for a year. I lived in the south of France.
I remember that.
For a year in a tent.
You were on a kibbutz in Israel, right?
I was on 2. Yeah, I got kicked off both of them.
Did the
You got kicked
one
off?
ask you to leave? And they did.
Yeah.
Can't even make a
Blasting
joke.
Fugazi too loud on Shabbos. I think that's the problem.
I'm not going to tell you why, but Kibbutz Sarid, which is in the Yezreel Valley near Afula, and then Kibbutz Ramat David, which is just up the road where the Air Force Base is, which had a nightclub on it. I lasted 1 day on that second one before I was 86 off campus. Then I went and lived in Tel Aviv, lived in a hostel called Momo's Hostel, which I think is still there. He was ex-Shin Bet.
Oh, wow.
So he got away with all sorts. There's a lot of people in there who shouldn't have been working and were working. So I was a painter and decorator. I worked in a nightclub. I was a minicab driver. I made hummus at a restaurant. I did all sorts. And then I came back, got a computer science degree. My first job was with Morrison Bowmore, a.k.a. Suntory, doing their online marketing. And then they found out about my backstory of growing up in distilling. I started doing more and more ambassadorial stuff to the point that, I then took on an assistant. He did more of my core stuff, and I did more of the ambassador stuff. Did that for a number of years. And then Diageo reached out and said, hey, would you be interested in moving to the United States to work on the Masters of Whisky program? For the folks who've never heard of that, that was our national whisky program, ambassadorial program here in the United States. I said no. They asked me again, and I just had a slight falling out with my then boss, who I'm not going to name. And I said yes. And I went home and I said, I need to talk to my wife. Went home and talked to my wife, Becky. She's like, yeah, let's do it. Wow. So that happened in August, and they're like, well, we need you here in September. So I had to sell house, cars, took my kids. And then on the 29th of October 2010, we flew to the United States, to a town we'd never even been to, Annapolis, where I still am today. And I started working for Diageo on their whiskey portfolio, and have been working on their whiskey portfolio for over 11 years now.
So first off, that journey sounds amazing. Like, there are more ins and outs and what have yous than the Big Lebowski. Like, this is that's really, really cool to hear all of that. So I really appreciate you sharing all of that.
Of course.
So the Masters of Whiskey and looking after the portfolio, from a Diageo perspective, back in those days, was that relegated to the single malt, and was Johnny Walker kept separate? Because there always seemed to be a bit of a delineation between, like, at least going to like shows like Whiskey Fest and things like that, that there was a delineation between what Johnny Walker booths looked like and what maybe the classic malt booths might look like.
I like the way you said booths there. It has a really nice resonance to it. I don't know why. Anywho, here's the answer. I got a little weird. Just say booths one more time.
Booths. You like that?
There
You
we
almost
go.
there?
There's some ASMR
Yeah, right.
for you. Yeah. So, backtrack to the Genesis point, Masters of Whiskey. They ostensibly just looked after single malts under the tutelage of Evan Catnick,
Yeah.
whose son Gregor, that I work with still today, and his son is called Evan. So they looked after single malts, and then they became bipartisan. So they looked after all Diageo portfolio. So they had Bullet, for example, Crown Royal, George Dickel, single malts, Johnny Walker, etc., etc. Bushmills, when we still owned Bushmills. And then if you were to visit like a Whiskey Fest or a Whiskey Live or any of those kind of events, consumer-led events, they would then, have that delineation that you were talking about. So they had to be treated as separate entities, with the exception of classic malts, which was the umbrella there. And you would have Oban, Talisker, Lagavulin, etc. That booth. And then what you would booth. And booth. You have that really nice Orson Welles resonance thing going on that I don't. Although when he narrated the Transformers movie, that was kind of weird. Anyway, so I'm off at a tangent again.
Gosh.
And then you would have
about
Crown
that.
Royal. Yeah, he did. And have you ever seen the Paul Masson advert that he did? You know the wine, Paul Masson wine. If you go into the
Oh,
YouTube
yes, I have seen that. That's
put on Orson Welles,
he's
Paul Masson. Yeah,
he is pissed off his rocker. Like, he is so
Yes.
drunk in those advertisements.
yeah, they're the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you ever watch Schitt's Creek, they do a homage to it in Schitt's Creek, where she does a wine advert
Yes.
and gets progressively more hammered.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep,
that's
yep.
a little nod to the Orson.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah.
off at another tangent again. So you'd have the Crown Royal booth, the George Dickel booth, Johnny Walker booth, and they'd all be staffed by Masters of Whiskey, would one be assigned to each, or in the case of the single malt one, it would typically myself and Gregor if we were available, and then the other ones we'd have like promo models there as well, because they were way more attractive than we are, and men are stupid and they're like moths to a flame. They'll come towards anything pretty, and we are not pretty, so that's why they were there, and they were great as well. Some of them were very highly educated and knew a lot about our brands, and so we would kind of tag team that. But yeah, I haven't done a whiskey show in a while, obviously because we have a pandemic. But yeah, I'm quite keen to see what they look like these days. You've probably been.
I did. Was it last May? So May 2021, there was the Whiskey and Barrel Night in New York, and that's when, maybe it was May or June. Anyway, but that's when America was feeling confident again, and we've cracked the nut. The worst is behind us, and here we are, all in hell once more. But
You also just did Wow San Jose.
yeah, but that was an outside event. Interestingly enough, yeah, they made that an outside event. So
is that World of Whiskey?
yeah,
or is it just called Wow?
Whiskeys of the World. Whiskeys of the World.
Whiskeys of the World.
Yeah,
all
Douglas
right, so it's not aimed
Smith's-
at like millennials. So
Yeah.
Wow Festival.
LOL.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
DTF.
IMO.
I'm just quoting all the
FML.
things you text me, Ewan, that's all.
So
Yeah.
so
So remember, we have to keep this PG-13 here. All right. Keep
Oh, I
going.
thought it was NC-17. Anyway,
All right, have at it.
so it's
I
so
don't care.
interesting, though.
I thought it was just PG tips.
PG, just a tip. You forgot about that joke.
So as I was saying,
Orson Welles.
we're never going to get through this. So, as you were mentioning all of those brands, it's so funny. When I think of Diageo, I think of the 20 some odd malt distilleries in Scotland, and then I think of
31.
Johnny Walker. 31. All right, we'll
Yes.
talk about that in a little bit, and then of course I think of Johnny Walker, but I never, for some reason, I don't think about Dickel, and I don't think about some of the other non-Scottish brands. From your perspective as a Diageo ambassador, someone who really looks after the entire portfolio, how much of your time is spent looking after the American stuff, be it like Orphan Barrel or Dickel, and how much of it is on the Scottish side of things?
So my role has changed recently, whereas before I had full portfolio. I still have Orphan Barrel, which you can see behind me here. I've worked on that project since its genesis and been fairly heavily involved in it. But these days, I don't really work on anything apart from luxury, really.
Okay.
So me fancy. So yeah, all like the expensive single malts. Orphan Barrel falls under that remit. The high end Don Julio, Zacapa XO, that kind of stuff. Johnny Walker Blue and up. So I work on those now. But prior to that, if I was to look at how I split my time out, I spent a good amount of time on Scotch because Johnny Walker is a large volume brand. The single malts obviously require a lot of education because it's one of the trickier things to teach people on. But Bullet was a big brand that we focused on. When I started working on Bullet, it was like 33,000 cases. It's now like nearly 2 million. And so growing these brands into what they can become. And George Dickel, I started the George Dickel residency where people would go and work there, the internship at that distillery where ambassadors would go and work there. And it was really like a grain to glass operation almost. So you're going in there, working all of the stages of the distilling and fermentation and milling and disgorging and stuff like that. So yeah, I did spend a decent amount of time on American whiskey. Crown Royal, which is a brand I love. I think the Crown Royal brand story is really interesting. I think how they make whiskey up there is fascinating. So they're producing multiple styles of whiskey, not in the same way they produce multiple styles of whiskey at Mortlach, which I'm working a lot on these days. But they're producing different styles of continuous distillation. Canadian whiskies that they then blend together and they go into different cask lineages. So there's 50 different styles of whiskey to pick from when they're coming to the blending.
Wow.
So yeah, things like that. I'm coming up with education for them that's compelling and interesting, and people are going to take things away, and you get that advocacy for the brand. So you have to love them all. Some are easier to love than others. Some when I was working on full portfolio for a Diageo hospitality program, and I was having to come up with education for brands like Crown Royal, as well as brands like Captain Morgan, for example, and Smirnoff. So I was having to do like a deep dive and try and find things that I was going to fall in love with. And the Smirnoff story is actually fascinating. The Captain Morgan story, starts in the 1940s in Jamaica, but there's not that much information in there.
Sure.
They've moved location a few times, and their production is, it's column distillation. There's not a huge amount going on there, but you have to find things that are compelling that people are going to find. Oh, I didn't know that about Captain Morgan. So trying to find something in there that you can create some kind of love and some kind of advocacy isn't always easy, but if you don't love it, then how can you expect anyone else to love it? So,
and that was going to be my question. Like, how did you find a love for a brand like Smirnoff? I'm not knocking it as a brand, but it's, this ubiquitous vodka that is quite a different product from Mortlach or Johnny Blue and beyond. So how did you find your love for these brands that maybe weren't your bag previously?
That's an easy one. You look at the people and you try and understand the people behind the brand and why did they love it. And then you go into more detail of that. And the Smirnoff story is actually fascinating. It did start off in Russia, moved locations multiple times. It was in France for a period of time and then moved into the United States, late 30s, early 40s. And then, didn't really get springboard until they came up with that. This is the original Moscow Mule mug.
Yeah.
Just so happens to be right next to me from the Cock and Bull restaurant in Los Angeles. So, they were coming up with drinks like that, and it was something like that propelled it forward. And then 1969, it was in Dr. No, again, another huge springboard for that brand. So finding these things that are fascinating to me, that you can then talk about the brand with genuine passion. And the fact that, Smirnoff had not only one of the first print adverts that had a black man in it in the United States, but it was also a gay black man.
Oh, wow.
And that was way back then. He actually then went on to be the voice of Panthro in Thundercats.
Come on.
So,
Wonderful.
Are you kidding me?
there you go.
Oh, you can hang your hat on that. That's
So
fantastic.
we've got Orson Welles and Transformers, and now we've got Thundercats.
Oh my gosh, who was the female Thundercat?
Double
who
barrel.
was
Chitara?
Was it
Chitara.
Chitara? Oh, I had the biggest
Yeah.
crush on her. Oh my gosh.
Get
All
in
right,
the
let's
line.
stop. Let's stop right
okay,
there.
Get in the line.
I
Can I ask a question?
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I realize that I'm taking up a lot of air here. Okay.
No,
hanging
that's
out.
fine. I'm fascinated by this. Your childhood crushes. And all these kind
Oh
of
my gosh. Also, Tootie from Facts of Life.
anthropomorphics, you know.
So, Jason, go
Are you,
ahead.
are you into furries as well?
No, I'm not a monster.
Yes, you are.
Not honestly, I really could talk about Thundercats all day, but in the interests of being a whiskey podcast, I am curious.
Thundercats. Ho.
He says, "How much time do we talk about Indiana Jones?"
Oh, Snarf. Snarf was the
Snarf.
was the cat.
Classic.
Yeah. Sorry, Jason.
Yeah.
Go on.
Classic. In coming over here in 2010, coming to the US and taking on your position, and you just said this just a second ago, now being in charge of the luxury end of things, how much were you watching the rise of luxury? How luxurious was it in 2010 when you started? And what do your dad and uncles think about some of the luxurious pricing that has come with this global explosion of single malt and Scotch?
Holy shit, that's a multifaceted question.
Welcome to the
All right.
party, Ewan. Welcome.
All right. So the differences between when I moved here in 2010 to today are noticeably different. Back then, if you were looking at luxury Scotch, you were probably talking about brands like Macallan, Johnny Walker Blue, some special releases that would come out from different distilleries, some limited editions, etc. And then you fast forward to today, every brand has a luxury SKU, a luxury product that will come out. Even if it's a non-age statement one, they can then, charge fairly substantial prices for that because it is a limited edition. So I'm not saying it's a bandwagon. I would definitely say it's a trend that more people have jumped on and adopted because they see it as a real jewel in the crown for their brand, and even like young brands will have them. So, and that's a good thing. Going back to your question, pricing and what do my dad and his uncles think about it? Probably not an awful lot, to be honest. Whereas we've been around a long time, okay, and we can remember when you could still buy bottles of Mortlake Flora and Fauna for $32.99, and now they're like $800 if you can find them. So I would say that it's a double-edged sword, and I have to be quite careful about how I frame this out. But if you look at like the affordability back then versus now, even Macallan, you can still buy Macallan 17 back then when it still had the 17 relatively inexpensively. You go to today and you look at prices of Macallan, and no, I'm not pointing fingers at them by any means. It's just an example.
Sure.
You know, is it as accessible? Is it affordable as it used to be? No, of course it's not. And a bourbon has suffered the same thing.
Yes, it has,
you know,
yeah.
if you look at, you know, Pappy Van Winkle, great example. I remember going into liquor stores in New Jersey, and you could pick up bottles of that very inexpensively. And now we know what those prices look like, all because of Anthony Bourdain, rest in peace, who I got really drunk with in New Orleans years ago. That's another long story. Anyway, broke two fingers that night falling off a mechanical bull. Anyway, so in the Bourbon Cowboy, just opposite Absinthe House. Yeah, so it's a tricky one, because you can see where brands are coming from, because they want to have something that's profitable. They want to have something that, again, you know, I'm talking about having a jewel in the crown, something special that people talk to, and, you know, that's your North Star. If people are talking about, you know, what's the pinnacle of what you create, and you can say it's this, and here's the reason why, and here's how we created it, and here's why we created it. But in terms of, you know, the old guard who still remember what pricing used to look like, it's a bitter pill for some of them. But yeah, at the same time, my dad is still going out and spending fairly sizable amounts of money collecting whiskies, because he sees the value in it and he likes doing it. But you know what I would say is, it's sometimes hard for people who love a brand to buy that brand's products, and that generally rubs me up the wrong way. There should be affordable stuff in there as well, and sometimes there isn't. Or there should be stock that you can buy, and because it's a smaller brand, or, you know, it's on allocation or whatever, it sometimes gets a little tricky. So if you bump into people and they're saying, you know, I love distillery X, but I can't get this, or I saw they were advertising this new, you know, special release or limited edition or whatever, and they had tried their hardest to get it, but it got picked up by people who were then flipping it on the internet the next day, and you know, the flippers, without using salty language, have changed the landscape of whiskey. Once people see blood in the water and they see cash that could be made, easy cash, then, you know, it's like any other equity. They're going to jump on it.
Yeah. Is Blood in the Water one of the orphan barrels? Am I remembering that correctly?
It's the next one.
It's coming up.
Yeah.
I thought it was
no,
blood
it's
in the
not.
gym. I thought that was it. Blood, sweat, and tears in the gym.
Anytime somebody says, I remember when, you know nothing good's going to follow from it.
Yeah.
And I say, I remember when all the time. And I know people stop listening as soon as I say that. So
I just stopped listening there.
Which is why I'm going to come back with a compliment to get you listening
I'm
again.
just staring wistfully off in the distance at this Orson Welles poster. No, it's a Ratatouille poster.
So I like what you're saying there about having the affordable offerings, right? And we just spoke with Georgie Crawford about Lagavulin 8-year-old. Lagavulin 8-year-old is an absolutely cracking whiskey. And the fact that you can pick that up, your mileage may vary, but, you know, $45, $60, maybe a bit more than that in some other states. But I might not be able to get my hands on the 37-year-old Lagavulin that I think was at the distillery for £1,500. But the 8-year-old is something I can happily drink day in and day out. So I think keeping accessibility in mind is hugely important. So I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah. And my son actually works with Georgie's sister.
Oh, Isla?
Yeah.
Nice one.
Yeah. Yeah, they work together.
Wow.
It's a small world, isn't it?
It's a small world after all.
Last time we did a warehouse tasting at Lagavulin, it was with Isla.
Oh, wow.
Is that
Yeah.
true? Oh,
She-
it is.
There you go.
Yeah.
Isla was the one doing the pouring for
That's
Pinky.
right.
It wasn't Pinky.
So he just wasn't allowed to pour at that time.
Oh. All right, let's gloss over that. Moving on. All right.
I said he was in the room.
The elephant in the room that you just created.
The pinky elephant in the
Thanks.
room. Yep.
Yeah. They're everywhere. Fantasia reference for you. I think we're going to like a cartoon theme throughout the course of this.
Perfect. That works out great.
So abstractly, but never mind.
Joshua, I got to ask my question. I am happy to give you back the floor.
But listen, if you had something else, I'm going to take us in a slightly different direction. So if you
go for it. I've got a controversial thing that I want to talk about, but I don't think you want to get into other people's business. So once we hit stop,
You can ask me. I'll either answer it or I won't. Have at it.
So here's something interesting: is I've been observing people who make it into your type of position, and they've moved into the luxury side of their brands. They're walking into places. They're selling absolute shit hot. They're going to all the big parties. And then they say, instead of making this money for this conglomerate, I could be making this in my own back pocket. And they leave this all singing, all dancing position. They go off into the world on their lonesome and they disappear. And then they perhaps make it back in another brand position. But given that you are one of those people in that position, do you see that appeal of, I could go out mowing here. I could be my own singing, dancing superstar. Do you see the temptation? And then at the same time, do you pull back from that cliff and you say, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing here. I'm really enjoying this and I see the value. There's a question for you, Ewan.
So when you say that they go off into the world and never see it again, are you implying that they're being assassinated? Is that where you're going with that? Is this some kind of born conspiracy theory that you've got going on here? Are you Joe Rogan? Is this a Joe Rogan podcast?
Look, let's be honest. We're after Spotify money.
We're going to get
That's what
on
we're after,
Spotify.
Ewan. Could you help us get Spotify money?
we want to take up the space that Neil Young once inhabited, so we'll see.
Yeah, Joni Mitchell.
Exactly.
If they had graves, they'd be spinning in them like fucking turbines. Where were we? Okay, so the honest answer to that is, and it's not as binary an answer as you may expect. Obviously, I think about it. It's everyone would like to have their own brand, and you know what? Never say never. Or if I get to retirement age, or even before, then it might be something I would consider. But at the time being, I'm happy where I am, and I love doing what I'm doing, and I'm third generation working on many of these brands. Specifically Walker, I feel like I have a certain amount of duty to it as well, which might sound corny, but it's true, because there's brands that we have that I simply adore, and I would find it extremely difficult to jump away from them. And I love the people who make them as well. So you become good friends with the distillers, the people who work at the distilleries, and I have a certain amount of, I have a lot of loyalty to that kind of thing. I'm a very loyal person. But, if came the day where I couldn't work with brands like Kleinleash, Cardew, and Brora now that it's reopened, Port Ellen now that it's reopened, I think that would be a tough one for me. Because say what you like about Diageo, they do have the largest Scotch portfolio on planet Earth.
Beautiful portfolio.
And we have well in excess of 10 million barrels maturing in Scotland, all of those different flavors to choose from. So like the projects that we have going on are really, really exciting. And, even things that came out quite recently, like Johnny Walker High Rye, where they're making a rye at Teenanich and they're making a rye at Cameron Bridge. Those are being blended together. That makes up 60% of the makeup. And then you've got, Cardew, Cameron Bridge, Kalila, Kleinleash, Glenkinchie in there as well. There's a good story behind it, a great price point as well. So innovation that people can afford, I love. And they come out with innovation like that, but they're also coming out with like luxury innovation as well. So it's no 2 days ever the same. We have a phenomenal portfolio. The people who make our spirits are all lovely human beings. The people who work in our archive, I talk to all the time, are extremely lovely human beings. Not the others aren't extremely lovely. They're all extremely lovely. But I work with a lot of different people, and everyone is nice. And they all love the brands, and to be involved in a company that has that level of energy and positivity is a rare thing. And like I've been an ambassador for a long, long time, and the average shelf life of a brand ambassador is 3 years. So for me to be doing it 20 plus, just as a testament to not only working with Suntory, who were phenomenal, but also working with Diageo, who have a much bigger portfolio, specifically on Scotch. I love it. So I feel like it's a complicated answer, but it's the true answer.
It. No, I like it a lot. I like you talking about loyalty, and I like you again talking about people, right? What's any job without the right people around you?
Yeah, and we hire really great people as well. Like, I'm talking about the people who make it, but even like in our teams here in the United States, we hire really great talent and we nurture that talent. And it's nice to see those people grow and progress and their knowledge improve, and then them mentor people under them. So it's this kind of really nice cyclical thing that's going on where you're paying it forward. And, you know, I try and share as much knowledge as I can with the teams, and I try and mentor as many of them as I can. But we have a large team. We have over 160 people. So traveling and spending time with them, but also doing like online education and recording things that they can go back and self-study. I feel like I have a certain amount of loyalty to them, well, a lot of loyalty to them, but also a lot of, you know, responsibility. Your facts have to be correct. You have to double, triple check them, because then they're going to relay them. And if you get something wrong, for example, then it's like a cascade effect of inaccuracy. So making sure that all those facts are solidified and checked and you're happy with them, and that is the messaging that should be going out there into the ether and beyond, it's a big responsibility. But I love it. I genuinely love my job. I really do. I'm a very lucky boy.
Fantastic.
I love that.
Yeah. Just for reference, Joshua's crying right now. He's weeping like a baby.
Your sincerity is just touching. It's making my heart swell.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, he's still thinking about you, Tara.
I am still
I'm welling up as well. Yeah,
there's something else swelling as well, but this is another story. Listen, I had a question.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think has been fun to watch, even though I wouldn't say I participated along the way, though I have dipped toes here and there, is watching the evolution of the Johnnie Walker line and the additions of different Johnnie Walker colors, different blends, you know, a dedicated blend, and now with high rye. Like that's been really interesting to see. But I haven't seen much change to, say, classic malts. And so I wonder, is there a plan for Diageo to start focusing a bit more on single malts, on classic malts? Is there a potential with Rosile being on board now for almost 10 years that a lot of liquid can come from there to go into blends to maybe bolster some of the other single malt distilleries that you have within the portfolio?
That's a really good question. And the answer lies in volume. If you look at global volume of sales, Johnnie Walker is 90% plus of our whiskey. So they keep the lights on. There would be no single malts without blends.
Of course.
And that's been the case for a long, long time. Johnnie Walker Red, best-selling Scotch whiskey on the planet, with the exception of the United States, where black outsells red. It's the only country in the world where black outsells red. Wow. So if you're looking at the simple math of it, blends make the money, so the money goes behind the money. So if you're driving it forward and you want to keep these distilleries operational, your single malt distilleries, then you have to support the ones that are making the cash, and it's that brand specifically, Johnnie Walker. We also have other large blended brands like Buchanan's, for example.
Sure.
I would say that is changing, and some people who focused on single malts and have done very, very good job with it, William Grant specifically, Edrington, who with Macallan, have done very, very good jobs of marketing those brands and have done for decades. That is changing, though, however, whereas Diageo are doing a real big focus on single malt, specifically Mortlach, which I'm working on a large project for that right now, and there's a sizable investment has gone behind that brand. So I'm going to be going on a national tour with that shortly, visiting 11 cities and talking to distributors, talking to bar owners, on-premise, USBG, etc., and that's something that we've never really done of scale before. So, the tide is definitely turning, and focus is going on and looking at single malt brands that, Diageo love, and we have enough volume to supply the market. The United States being an enormous market. If you're a small brand, sometimes it's hard to get national distribution or support national distribution. Sure. But having a brand like Mortlake, which is a reasonable output from that distillery, but we have a lot of aged stock in there. So we have enough juice to support not only the United States, but as a global campaign. But here in the US, we're putting a decent amount of dollars behind that brand. And, that will be the benchmark. We'll see where we get with that. And then Oben Talsker Lagavulin, I will say, are very important to our world here. They sell very well here in the United States. Lagavulin, we put a large investment behind couple of years ago, with the Nick Offerman campaign, sure. which was very successful and a completely organic thing. People think that we engineered it, and we did not. The showrunners were big fans of Lagavulin, and they got Nick Offerman to start drinking it, and then he fell in love with it. And we didn't pay to have that on the show; it just appeared, and then from there, the opportunities kind of organically grew. But yeah, it's one of those things. Like people do ask me that question quite frequently. It's like, why do you not focus more on single malts? Why are we not seeing more large campaigns on single malts and treating them as their own entities? And that is starting to change. And then we're doing a big campaign with Talisker at the moment, where we're supporting the Billion Oyster Project. I don't know if you're aware of that, but they're planning to put a billion oyster shells back into the New York harbor, and then they're actually growing oysters on that to clean the water. So it's like a natural filter to clean out the bay. And Parley, which is like the ocean charity to cut down on ocean plastics and things like that. So we are doing these programs, and they are in place. But I would say that the Mortlake one is probably going to be the biggest one that you will see this year.
Okay. Will we... Well, I don't know if I want to go down.
Are you now going to ask me to explain Mortlake distillation?
So explain 2.87...
2.81.
Oh, is it 2.81?
Yeah.
2.81.
Well done, whiskey nerd.
Wow. I've failed. Every one of our listeners is like, you fucking... It's 2.81, you son of a bitch.
You're gonna edit that bit out. I know it. You'll keep in all the bits of me talking about bleeding nipples, but when you fuck up 2.81, that one's gonna get the cutting room floor.
There's just gonna be style. I have to overdub, and I'll just say 1. It'll be 2.8
in an Orson Welles voice. I can't explain it if you want. I don't mind.
We're getting toward the end, and there's a question that we always get everybody out on. However, I think I've got one more question before that in the chamber, before our closing question. Okay. I wanted to give Jason the floor to see.
Nope, I appreciate the offer. Let's hear your question, and then we'll get out on our usual ending.
I had mentioned Rose Isle before, and this idea that Rose Isle would be a distillery that can create a multitude of distillates that could then service the Johnnie Walker brand. And I realized 10 years ago, or however many years ago, when Rose Isle was built, there was a lot of news, right? People talked about it. It was a bit more amongst the conversation. We don't hear about it anymore at all. And so I wonder if you wouldn't mind just explaining to our listeners what Rose Isle is, what it's meant to be doing, and how it just works within the Diageo portfolio writ large. Okay.
So Rose Isle, for the folks who've never heard of it, is a large single malt distillery up near Burghead in Speyside. Some people refer to it as the Whiskey Death Star. Some people refer to it as Glen Mordor. It has
I like that.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it's a good one.
You might do.
Yeah, it's a good one.
But it's a large distillery. They're doing Speyside styles there. So it's designed in essence to mimic styles, not mimic distilleries, but mimic styles. So grassy, fruity, nutty, etc. that can then go into our blends. So blends like Johnny Walker, which we've spoken about, Bell's, which you will see in the UK, Buchanan's, so on and so forth. So it's a large output. I think it's 14 washbacks that they have on site there. They've got 14 stills, and they're almost carbon neutral. They use biomass on site. So for those folks who don't know what biomass is, so you'll have these large tanks called the anaerobic respirators. The spent grain from the distillery will then go into those, and then microbes attack that and create methane. We use that methane to ignite in turbine generators, and that creates electricity, which then runs the distillery. Wow. It's a very green way of doing things. They also have one at Cameron Bridge Distillery, which is Diageo's largest distillery, which is 115 million litres of pure alcohol a year. They also make the grain whiskey for Johnny Walker, Tanqueray for the global market, Gordon's, Smirnoff for the European market, Pimm's. It's a real powerhouse. And again, it's almost completely carbon neutral. We take very little in from the national grid. And that's something that Diageo are very committed to. But at Rosal, they have that in operation. But it has been in operation for some time now. We have seen like a special release come out, like occasional, like limited editions internally of Rosal liquid. We haven't seen a commercial liquid come from there yet, because that's not what it was built to do.
Sure.
Now, I'm not going to stand here or sit here and say that we're never going to do that. But it was built for a purpose, and the purpose was to create liquids for our blending team, because it's a large distillery. They can produce multiple styles. They also, fun fact, they have twin condensers off of each still, one stainless steel and one copper, shell and tube, and they can vacillate the vapor between the two, or they can just do a stainless steel run if they want to have less copper contact, or if they want to have more purification. They can go back to copper again, so they can have a heavier sulfury style like you would see at Mortlach, for example, or they can have a very pure, clean style that you would see Clynelish, Cardew, etc., etc. So large distillery that produces multiple styles that are dictated by our blending teams.
I love that. When I first heard about Rosal, I thought it was such a smart idea for a large company to be doing, to house under one roof the ability to make a multitude of spirit styles. And ever since, I've been wanting to taste liquid from that distillery, so maybe one of these days.
Is that where we were going with this? Was this just a subtext for me to get you samples of Rosal?
I didn't say it.
I mean, I'm not going to say self-serving, but self-serving.
No, again, it's one of those distilleries that was widely discussed some years back, but is really not talked about anymore. And so I just wanted to make sure, because I mentioned it previously, I wanted to make sure that our listeners had an understanding of what Rosal was, so they had the context for the question.
I mean, you cannot visit that distillery. Most of our distilleries you cannot visit. There's only a small handful that you can, like Glenkinchie and Talisker and Lagavulin, Kalila, etc., Cardew. Most of them are what we call closed sites, where it's by appointment only, as you guys probably know.
Yep.
You have to get in contact with Diageo. You have to then go through your health and safety. They'll follow you around with a gas meter, and you have to wear high visibility jackets and steel toe cap shoes and all of that jazz. So they're commercial sites, and they're not meant for tourists to walk around. So yeah, Rosal is one of those. You can drive past it and you can see it's a huge distillery. But yeah, they're producing multiple styles from there. To say there is a single Rosal style is just not the case, because it was built to make multiple styles. So which style would it be?
That's what
would it be the nutty?
And that's what I was going to say. It almost sounds like a moving target, where you could say, here's a grassy style from Rosal, here's a fruity style from Rosal, but there's maybe no platonic ideal of a rosile style.
Yeah, and they're doing like variable fermentations. Obviously, if you're wanting a nutty style, you're going for short fermentation, cloudy wort, versus fruity, where you're going long fermentation, clear worts. And they can do that there, so they can do multiple styles at that distillery, and they do. But it's all dictated by our blending team, who forecast years ahead and say, this is what we're going to need in 2030. And this is where age stock we're going to need. So they produce it, spec'd out by our blending team. It's then tankered down to Black Range and then disgorged down there. And most of it's matured down there at Black Range, which is just south of Stirling.
Are there any worm tubs at Rosile?
No.
There aren't. Okay.
Shell and tube. All of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Internal shell and tube, so they're inside the distillery, as opposed to outside, where you're going to get more of a rapid vapor change.
Got it.
Not to get nerdy about it. Well, we can get nerdy about it as well. We can talk about dimethyl trisulfide if it floats your boat.
Next time. Let's just.
So, we need to make sure that we.
People are getting excited. Oh, he's talking about mercaptans. Oh, sounds fascinating. He must be a thrill a minute in the pub. Talking about Thundercats and sulfur.
We haven't even mentioned one of your nicknames being Google.
Oh yeah, that was Ian McCallum who came up with that. Actually, it was a guy. It was actually before that. It was a guy called Glenn Moore who used to be the global brand director of Bowmore, and then Ian McCallum got on it. Then Jamie McKenzie, and not many people call me that anymore. So thanks for bringing that up.
Can I call you Alta Vista? I was going to call you Alta Vista.
Netscape.
Call me whatever you want. Netscape Navigator.
Netscape Mosaic. Oh my gosh.
The Dead Browsers. That's another emo band.
Oh my gosh. We didn't even get to talk about punk and hardcore. Like
I know.
It's obvious that we need to have a part 2 with Ewan Morgan. Here on the podcast.
You said you weren't going to turn that shit joke out again.
I did not. I said I would say it up to 7 times. That's what I said. I only did it once. So listen. There's always a question that we like to get our guests out on, and so here it is. In addition to ensuring that Jason and I have access to late teens, early 20s sherry cask Lagavulin, I wonder what has Ewan Morgan excited, not just about your job in the next year, 2 years, 5 years, but maybe, about Diageo in the next few years, or whiskey in general in the next few years. What has you waking up in the morning?
Well, you don't want to know what wakes me up in the morning.
I thought it was the best part of waking up was Folgers in your cup. Is it your cat?
No, it's my cat. My cat Sky, who sits there at 4 a.m, tapping me on the nose, waiting to get fed.
It's food time.
It's like water torture. What gets me excited? Lots of things get me excited. The fact that we reopened distilleries that have been dormant for many years, since 1983 in the case of Brora and Port Ellen, and seeing what they're going to produce, but that's not going to be for some time.
Yeah.
So seeing like the innovation that's going on in distilling at the moment, and looking at things like Johnny Walker High Rye, where we're starting to bring back Scottish Rye, which is an old product. Back in the 1700s, it was first mentioned. But seeing things like that, and seeing, what else gets me really excited? It's like the new wave of people who are coming into the business who are just as passionate and love the brands and want to do right by the brands, or create their own brands and do what you guys are doing, like where you're going out and sourcing really exciting casks from all of these different distilleries and giving people an opportunity to taste liquid that they may not have been able to taste. Yeah. And giving people those really unique experiences, and having people falling in love with whiskey, because it's not the easiest category to fall in love with. There's a certain barrier there. Alcohol being the biggest one, like people aren't used to that big burst of alcohol when they first drink it, or smoky whiskeys, and taking people and mentoring them on their journey, and like introducing to something that you know that they might like, rather than going in and saying, "Oh, here's a cask strength Lagavulin sherry cask." Get stuck in. I know you're starting to get excited at the mention
You
of those.
absolutely did it for me.
Almost there,
Ewan.
Ewan.
And,
Almost there.
Oh boy.
and I'm not. Anyway, so.
2 independent bottlers, 1 cask.
But what you might do is say, here's a really nice Speyside whiskey. Here's a Cardew 12, for example, or here's a Clynelish 14, or here's a Glenkinchie 12, and like introduce them to those, or even have it in a highball or in a cocktail or something like that. And then from there, the barrier has come down where it's just like, I hate whiskey. I don't like whiskey. I'll never drink whiskey. To actually, I like that. I find elements of that I find enjoyable. I'm now interested in how they make it. And then they will go and they will start their baby steps on the journey into the world of whiskey. So I love that, and I love there's a new generation of people coming in who want to do that and want to do a good job, because as you guys know, some people get into this industry for themselves. It's like politics. Some people are very self-serving. Some people want to come into. I was born into it. I didn't have a fucking choice. But some people will come into it and they're like, I want to be famous. I want to be the star of the show. Yeah. You could probably think of a few people off the top of your head who do those kind of things. And it's less about the brand and more about them. Or people who will sign bottles of whiskey that they didn't make. That's another personal bugbear of mine. But anyway, let's not get into that. But I'm painting a picture. You can probably get an idea of things that I do and don't like. But I do love the fact that so many people are coming into it who are so passionate about it and want to do the right job and want to do it for the right reasons. And we have a massive amount of them on our team who just do a phenomenal job. And specifically, if I'm talking about the new wave, the amount of females who are coming into it, whereas it was a very male-led industry for many years.
Sure.
There was a few examples, obviously, of females who were doing a phenomenal job. But these days, it's like 50-50 in our team.
Wow.
Which is great. Yeah. And I love it. I couldn't be happier about it. They look at things in a different way. Sometimes they're more cerebral about things. They're typically better sensory analysts. Sure. Yeah. So to have both sides, it's always nice to have balance, right? And if it's very male dominated, then the way people think about things or market things or even trying to express things are different to if a female was doing it. But having a balance of the two creates this really nice kind of story that you're going along and you're telling both sides of things, or you're getting input from both sides. And I love that. I love the fact that this industry is balancing itself out, which was sorely needed. 10 years ago on Masters of Whiskey, I think we had 2 ladies on that team.
I think
of a national team.
It's so smart. I wouldn't even say it's smart. Screw smart. It's important because women have had a tough time getting into whiskey because there was no one representing them from the other side of the table. And so if they were going to a restaurant or to a bar or to a whiskey show, they would be the partner of the guy who was drinking the whiskey. And now you're seeing more women, knowledgeable women behind the table say, oh, the door is open for me, right? I think that's so important. Yeah. And I really, hats off to you and the Diageo team for looking at that and making sure that women are part of the conversation, because it's important.
I mean, that is important. And, all jokes aside, it's something that's very near and dear to my heart. But, there's still a lot of work to be done, specifically on the consumer side of things, because we still get feedback that, if a girl or a lady is going to go and do a whiskey tasting, for example, they still have this thing at the back of the mind. If it's all guys, are they going to be taken as seriously? And obviously that shouldn't be the case, but it still is, sadly. Yeah. And we still do get feedback of that we'll go and do a whiskey event and some douchebag will make some kind of comment about your girl. What do you know? And 100% of the time they know a lot more than that douchebag does.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of re-education that still needs to be done. Although it's being done on the industry side very well, not just by Diageo, by all of our competitors who do a really great job at William Grant and Pernod and Bacardi, etc. But on the consumer side of it, specifically in that kind of patriarchal universe of cigar smoking, golf playing, chodes, who will show up and chode. I've never used that. Gosh. I haven't used that word in a long time. It's like an emo flashback.
Last time I used the word chode, I was waiting for the next episode of Alf to come on, but instead the first episode of Thundercats came on, NBC, 7 p.m. It's terrible.
Yeah, and Chitara came on, you had to excuse yourself.
Excuse me, I gotta go wash my chode. Anyway, continue, sorry.
for 15 minutes. I'll be back. TiVo it. So yeah, there's TiVo. Where was I? Yeah, so I would say that on the consumer side of things, there's definitely a lot that still needs to be done in terms of the perception of who an expert is in spirits, or a whiskey expert is in spirits. And I know a lot of very, very smart females in this industry who know way, way more than I do, or how much I will ever know. And a lot of people who work in our blending team are females, and our sensory panel are females. The lady who runs production for the whole of North America is called Pauline, and she's Scottish. She used to run Port Dundas, which is where Muckety Muck was made. But yeah, they're like a wealth of knowledge. And for them, it breaks my heart if you see these people going up who have so much knowledge and people aren't taking them as seriously as they should do. I think that's a criminal thing. It really upsets me.
Yeah.
See, that's a good Scottish answer, right? We get from what are you most excited about to the conclusion of that really upsets me. Right? That's perfect. Perfect.
Do you want me to start complaining about the weather? I can do that as well.
The price of PG tips in Tetley, we can complain about that until the cows come home.
I could paraphrase that famous quote from Train Spotting about being Scottish, but I'm not going to.
Well, thank you, sir.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
This has been absolutely brilliant, Ewan. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much. It was cool hanging out. We didn't have a single whiskey. We're drinking tea.
Whoa!
Yeah, Jason's with the PG tips.
Should we have a whiskey? I'm surrounded by it.
I'll take a pull from a bottle.
You know what?
What do you have? Is that the Talisker 42-year-old?
Distiller's edition.
All right.
No, this is the Distiller's edition from 2012.
Oh, there you go.
I will have a wee one.
Jason and I had a really nice Talisker with your dad one time. We were in Aberlour visiting with him, and he broke out some Talisker 57 North. Which is
that's probably my bottle.
Yeah, I think
it was your bottle.
It was your bottle.
Yep.
Yeah.
It came from the attic.
Oh yeah, so it definitely was my bottle. Thanks for rubbing that in. Cheers.
To his credit, he told us it was your bottle.
Yeah, he did tell me also after the fact.
For both you and for your dad.
Oh, look at that!
All right, hold on.
Yum. 57 North. For the sake of the people listening, Joshua's rummaging around in his whiskey closet.
Yeah, he's not going to find a bottle in there.
Oh, I found a bottle, and I've got. You'll like this, Ewan. So this is Talisker 25, but this is a victim.
Oh, the old Cask strength.
The Cask strength, but it was a victim of Hurricane Sandy back in 2013. So the label got a little mucked up. I bought this for $90.
No way.
And I could have gotten more. And you know what I said? I'll just get the one. I was so stupid.
What?
I'm not a smart man, Ewan. I know it appears that way, especially when I'm with Jason. I'm the smart one, but I'm not very smart.
I have a couple of bottles of that I actually got when I used to trade whiskey with Harvey Fry.
Oh yeah,
who's a famously of Jack Rose in DC, who now passed away sadly. But yeah, I traded some with him. So my cast strength 25-year-old came from Harvey Fry. Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in
Yeah.
peace. Cheers to him. I'll take another pull from this bottle in his honor.
Responsibly. He's actually drinking from a glass, Diageo legal department.
Hashtag, please drink the whole bottle responsibly. Is that how it goes?
Perfection.
No, I'm not sanctioning that comment. I'm drinking a 1943 Moscow Mule mug. There you go. Copper, because it's a purifier.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, the whiskey's even cleaner than it was before you put it in there. Beauty.
Delightful.
So,
Cheers.
thanks again, Ewan. Appreciate all your time today. It's been absolutely brilliant. Got to do this in person sooner rather
I
than
know. That's what I was about to say. We should do this live. After me moaning about how one-dimensional these virtual things are, we should get in a room together. That sounded really sinister. We should sit down and record this all in the same room,
Right.
in a nice genial conversation.
Drinking nothing but Rose Isle New Make.
What an absolute blast that was, sitting down with you and talking with him again. I really felt when we were talking with him that it was going to be difficult moving on to the next subject because we kept on joking and going down ridiculous rabbit holes and tangents and
You go down a lot of rabbit holes when you're sitting talking to Google.
oh, I like that. Mr. Google.
Google Morgan.
Yep, Google Morgan. So, Ewan, thank you so much. Absolute pleasure talking with you. And
Cheers, Ewan.
And like we said, it really needs to be in person next time. And now that we've cracked the seal and we've gone to a bar, maybe we'll meet up in a bar next time. I like that idea.
Like how we're trying. It's amazing to me that you don't like fake it till you make it, because here we are, we've been in one bar, now we're like, I think I could go to a second.
Well,
But
I
I'm
kind
not
of-
sure if I can.
I feel like you kind of have to force yourself. It's like,
That's what fake it till you make it means.
no, well, maybe. You and I, Jason, have an email we need to get to. We promised a very dear listener that we'd get to an email.
You did tell me that in today's production meeting. And by production meeting, I mean as we were driving down I-5 and taking an hour and 5 minutes to cover 30 miles.
You are such an old man. The whole time you're like, look at this. We're averaging 30 miles per hour.
I'm
You're
just
doing math. You're basically
That's it.
multiplying for proof the whole time.
That was it. I was just throwing math at you constantly to entertain myself.
So listen, we have the interview to get to, but we also have,
Interview to get to?
I don't know why I'm using those words. We have that email to get to,
That's what I hear.
and then we also have,
What speed will we be approaching that email at?
what speed? Well,
1 minute per minute?
1 minute per minute. So
Per hour.
we've got the email, but then we have a little bit of news that we teased before we went into this interview.
Extra, extra! Read all about it! Life story of Playboy Penny! Extra, extra! Extra, extra! Read all about it! Me and that Playboy in trouble again!
As alluded to earlier, we sat down for a 35-minute chitty chatty with Kerry Hart and Big B. And we discussed, first of all, their whiskey journeys, their professional journeys, their whiskey journeys, the Good Ride charity, the good rides that they do, as well as the events.
Yep.
We talked about the bourbon that we had such a blast collaborating on with them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we got to talk a little bit about some other things. Tomorrow, and I know the listening world listens at different times, so I know tomorrow is not true for everybody, but April 7
There you go.
will see us dropping a half episode dedicated to Kerry Hart, Big B, and Good Ride.
So my question for you is, for people who are listening to this 5 years from now, what year is that April 7?
Damn you, man. I felt like I covered that so well. And you're going to throw a 2022 reference at me. Damn that man who
Could
I
be 40,
can
44
eyeball.
if you double for proof.
Kick you in the butt right now. Because I can. Gonna right here. Staring at you.
So yeah, so please listen in for that. It's funny. Again, before this, we really hadn't known Carrie. We hadn't known
Yep.
Big B.
Yep.
But I always get a little nervous when I'm talking to
New boys?
Carrie's got 1.2 million followers on Instagram. That he's been doing stuff that is very important to people, and I always get a little nervous. And I was nervous when we first started, but they were so cool,
we're
easy to talk with.
were just
They're
dudes, yeah.
just dudes, just people.
Just
so
a couple of chaps.
So listen into that, and I hope you enjoy that. Listen, the other thing that I wanted to mention before we finish the news segment is the fact that we've got some things
We have things.
that are sitting on singlecastnation.com. 2 blends that we released, 20-year-old blended malt, Scotch malt, and an 18-year-old blended Scotch whiskey.
It's true. Those are great ages.
Yeah, they're good ages, good prices too.
Yeah, 170 for the 20-year-old blended malt and 120 for the 18-year-old blended Scotch. Both single casks, even with the word blend in there. They're both single casks, brought together at a young age, sat there, hung out there, married for all those years. Yeah, and just to be clear, the thing that we said in the tasting video that we posted on YouTube is these were 2 casks selected by a couple of clubs. Clubs got exactly what they wanted from it. The remnants went off to the nation. Sold lovely. We're still sitting on a few more bottles. If you want to order these, if you want to add in a Beanley rum, a few more Beanleys left to go as well. I'm so excited that we have bottles sitting on our website. We've spent years saying there's a bottle incoming. And then in the next episode, we're so honored that you bought that and it sold out in 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 2 hours, right? We have product on the website. Go to the website, buy some bottles. If you ordered some already, go order some more. If you haven't ordered yet, order a couple. Go crazy. Go nuts. Go bananas.
Yep.
$10 flat rate shipping fee across the United States.
Stretch that out a
excluding
little bit.
Alaska, excluding Hawaii. We'll get it to your front doorstep. Go. Purchase.
Good. I will.
Hit pause. Go purchase.
Are you talking to me or to the listeners?
Anybody who'll listen to me, let's be honest. Let's be honest.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is just a few days ago, our bottling hall bottled our Virginia Distillery Company single malt. Now, this is a 5-year-old in a Spanish oak sherry butt.
Yep.
And this sherry butt first held PX and then held El Oloroso, so 2 different types of sherry, before it then held this whiskey. And I told you, Jason, I tell everybody who will listen to me, this is of the quality of a 12-year-old cast strength Glenfarclas.
No doubt about it.
Like-
no doubt. I would put my own life up against that. I was going to say
gosh.
I put my family's life up against that, and that just sounded kind of dark. And so, yeah, I will
First, my children.
Yeah, I will go to my grave saying that's every bit as complex, as rich, as multi-layered as that 12-year-old cast strength Glenfarclas.
Yep.
And that's only a compliment of the highest order for our friends at Virginia Distilling Company.
Yeah. So
Virginia
that
Distillery Company.
Yeah, Virginia, what did you say?
This is why I just stick to VDC, but I just wanted to be clearer in my language for the listeners.
So
It's true.
So it's just been bottled. We're going to be putting that on our website soon-ish. We just want to make sure that it gets picked up and delivered to our warehouse and all that other stuff. But be on the lookout for a tasting video that we'll be releasing on this one soon. So
For 613 bottles.
And what was the cask number on this, Jason?
I think the first digit was a 6.
Right.
I don't know if you recall the second digit.
That may have been a 6 as well.
I think there were 3 digits, and the last one, I think that was a 6. The good news is you do not have to drink this whiskey inside a pentagram.
But I'll tell you,
Doesn't hurt.
it doesn't hurt. It elevates the experience.
Yeah, and to say very quickly, yes, the cask number is 666. And yes, when you walk into a warehouse or you get a bunch of samples and you see cask 666, you're like, I'll be bottling that. We put it through the ringer.
Oh, we did.
Because it's easy to jump to that conclusion that that's the number.
100%, right? We got a bunch of samples. And kind of like our English whiskey company, the 9-year-old in Sauternes, where I wanted to hate that.
There's a blast from the past.
Right. Well, I think about this a lot, right? I wanted to hate it because...
No offense to anybody associated
no offense
with...
to anyone at the English whiskey company, but here's the thing.
Awkward.
For me personally, my favorite cask type for maturation, aside from ex-bourbon, is Sauternes. And that one was Sauternes. And my thought was, we're going to say yes to that because it's Sauternes.
Yep.
And similarly here, the concern was, we're going to say yes to this because it was Cask 666.
Exactly.
And thankfully, Cask 666 just happened to be the best one for our palates.
Yeah, the best of the bunch from those samples.
Yep.
According to us, as you rightly say. Yeah. So excited to get that in there. And then I know we keep giving these updates and we remain excited about it. You listeners are living the global supply chain right along with us. We're still waiting confirmation that our Backwoods Heritage Rye has come into port.
Our Australian Backwoods Heritage Rye. I don't think you stress the fact that this isn't just a rye whiskey, but it's Australian rye whiskey, and it's produced by 2 people that I consider friends of ours, friends of the podcast.
Wonderful humans.
Lee and Bree Atwood, and they really are masters at what they do. They're winning awards left, right, and center, proper awards, and well-deserved. And I'm so psyched to put this out there. We just need to get it to the port and get it into the warehouse, and like you had said, global supply chains.
Well, and as you were referencing a moment ago, there was an English whiskey company, single malt, in Sauternes back in the day. Here we are with this Australian heritage rye from Backwoods being matured in Australian Shiraz.
Right? And that Shiraz was previously a Scotch whiskey cask that had been recharred.
Oh.
Right? I mean, so it's like a rechar Scotch whiskey cask, then holding Shiraz. What was your favorite note from that? Do you have a favorite note from that whiskey?
I'm only pausing for dramatic effect because I already have my answer. That chocolate cherry note that just shines right through. And it's interesting that we're having this moment right now because the last time I was at Virginia Distillery Company, I was telling Amanda and Brian down there, master blender and warehouse man who knows his casks very well also. I was telling them about the chocolate cherry note that's in the Backwoods Heritage Rye. And now here we are on the doorstep of them landing and being released. So, yeah, that's rocking. US stuff there. I'm excited. Stuff on the website, stuff coming in, stuff coming to shelves.
Yep, exciting. So,
2022, Joshua.
2022, 40-44. Just doubling from proof. So listen, you and I promised the wonderful Ollie Chillin,
Ollie.
that we'd read his email. Now, Ollie, who listeners would know, we've had him on the podcast before. He is the blender for Port Ascaig. He is the palate behind Single Malts of Scotland and Whiskey Trail and Elements of Islay and Black Tot Rum. Like this is someone we not only love as a dear friend, but we respect the hell out of.
He also blushes real easy.
He does.
He's blushing
does.
right
He
now
does.
hearing all of this.
So when you receive an email from someone who's not just a dear friend, but also someone you respect the living hell out of, you want to pay attention to it. You want to give it its due. So,
D-U-E.
D-U-E. Yeah, what did I say?
It just, your accent makes it sound like J-E-W.
All right.
You don't want to give him your due.
No, I gave that on my eighth day. I gave him oil, a bit of my Jew.
That brings tears to my eyes.
Ow. So the subject says bespoken quote unquote whiskey question mark.
Okay. Okay, yep.
And so he says, "Dear One Nation Under Whiskey, long time listener, first time caller." I love that. I'm so desperate to call a radio station and say that long time listener, first time caller, but I only listen to like NPR nowadays. So
You can do it to C-SPAN. I don't know.
I don't listen to C-SPAN. Anyway, says, "I enjoyed listening to your conversation with the fine people from Bespoken Spirits, though I will not lie," and then this is a parenthetical comment, "though I am not a white-haired Scot."
Hey, I represent that comment.
"I found it a little jarring. I will definitely look out for these when I next get to visit the USA," which I am hoping to bring him out here. We're working desperately on that. He continues, "The area I would have loved to have understood more about in their process was how they artificially create oxidation process in such a short time." And I think that is such a good question. We'll go on with that in a minute. "I would also like to know if it is possible to create the secondary esterification."
That's it.
Whew, that happens.
You got that square peg into that round hole.
Just a little lubrication gets right in the chest.
It's always a square peg in the round hole for you.
That happens in some maturations. On the philosophy side, and I know this is something we all enjoy debating, do you have concerns in widening the category of whiskey to include these modern techniques? How would you manage the difference between those producers genuinely looking to use technology to make great product, such as Bespoken, and those just looking to make a fast product and abuse the brand name of whiskey? If, for example, someone makes an unaged product of poor quality and claims it to be whiskey, could this not degrade the entire category? I love the way Ollie's thinking right here. He continues, "Hope the above encourages some discussion, or at the very least distracts you from the frightening increases in the cost of whiskey, glass, paper, corks, and capsules for a few minutes." Oh, and you're going to love this, Jason. "All the best, Oliver Chilton," and then final parenthetical comment, "or Ollie to you lovely people." Hey. So let me start this off.
Normally, the person who reads the email passes it off to the person who didn't read the
Yeah, I
email,
know.
but you do you.
Listen, I'm not gonna lie. I love hearing the sound of my own voice.
I don't think anybody who listens to this podcast would ever question that.
And so I remember not learning about the importance of oxidation in whiskey maturation through Ollie, but I remember understanding more the importance of oxidation in the maturation process through Ollie. And I would almost say shame on me for not for not asking that question. And I think it maybe warrants a follow-up question to our friends at Bespoken, which I'm sure we'll have. But that is interesting in that, because it wasn't brought up either by ourselves or by them, I wonder if that part of it has anything to do with that texture that I talked about. Now, I know with oxidation, we usually focus on what that can do to flavor, not necessarily texture. But it was very clear that through this process, the typical texture was that of an Armagnac or a cognac, more round feeling in the mouth and less oily or less sharp edged sometimes. And I do wonder if that is an oxidation thing, or if that is just something where they need to sharpen the process a bit more to mimic that texture quality.
Yeah, I'm certainly thinking, as we were going through the interview and the conversation, there were parts of their process that they were handling in-house and keeping secret.
Yeah.
And so as we sit here today, we're not going to be able to answer this oxidation and esterification question on behalf of Bespoken. As you point out, we could drop a note. Hey, Ollie, dude, we respect the hell out of over in the UK with all these brands, X, Y, Z. I had a couple of questions. Do you have any kind of answer to that? And give them the opportunity to say, actually, that's not an area we talk about publicly, which was part of our interview with them. The part that's of real interest to me, and I think that we get to unpack and wax lyrical about, is the category question.
And I have ideas, but you go, because that's me handing things off. Because listen, I don't like to just listen to my own voice prattling on here, right?
Was it handed off or was it taken from you? I think those two things might be different.
Not really, though.
And so this is the same point I've been making for a decade and a half, 2 decades, which is we've got Scotch whiskey, we've got Irish whiskey, we've got Japanese whiskey, we've got American whiskey.
You take a whiskey drink, you take a bucket drink, you take a bubba drink, you take a bubba drink.
I get knocked down. And I get up again. They are somewhat similar in that they're a brown spirit made from a grain matured in an oak vessel.
Over a period of time.
Over a period of time.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm following you now. I get a little nervous there
I
for
love
a
sitting
second.
in the same room as you, dude. Wow. I could
Creepers.
smell the disdain on that one. So there's all these points of commonality.
Yeah.
And then we got into American craft production.
Yep.
A decade and a half ago, for some 2 decades ago. And we started having these conversations about, well, maybe now you're using flour to create a mash. You're to create something worth fermenting. You're using a 15-gallon barrel, a 30-gallon barrel. You've got expedited maturation through the use of a smaller container, a smaller vessel. Yep. And I always took the side of craft distillers there, and I always said you're making a product, and you're authentically making a product, but you might benefit from it not being called whiskey, right? Because that spoke
I
to
remember this conversation,
that larger side of the category. And so now here we have Ollie's take here, Ollie's question here, which is now we've got some producers even removing the barrel from it, the micro staves that Stu and Martin were talking about. And so if I was to take the side of that producer, the way I took the side of the craft distiller, is maybe they'd be better off with that not being called whiskey. The potential for that is you're separating someone from a category where certain words mean certain things. And as a consumer, you can hang your hat
Yeah.
on the word whiskey, separate from a newer technology. And I have a question before you take back the reins.
Okay.
Do you even think we could even see the changing of a category?
Yeah.
The evolution, the subsetting of an established traditional category like whiskey?
So as usual, it's going to be a long answer and a bit circuitous. But I wanted to clarify something you said earlier on when you talked about craft producers perhaps benefiting from what they're producing to not be called whiskey. Really, it was a bit more specific than that. It was to not be called bourbon, right? To be called something other than bourbon. And I think that larger producers have worked with the TTB to change what cask size can be used for producing bourbons, and that's going to be increasing over a period of time, right? To help protect that as a category, right? So that's one. I think in the end, what Bespoken is doing, and what I know other brands are doing, is creating a new style of indeed whiskey. It is whiskey. What is whiskey? It's a spirit made from a grain, bottled at, no less than 40% alcohol, having some wood interaction. At least in the US, having some sort of wood interaction, right? So I don't think we want to take them out of the category of whiskey, just like I don't think we'd want to take craft producers out of the category of whiskey.
But now you are talking to what I just mentioned, which is a subsetting of the category.
And that's right. And that's what I said. It's sort of a circuitous answer. I think what we need to do, and this will talk to Ollie's question as well, is I think there needs to be another category. This is only going to grow. The bourbon boom continues to boom, whether it's here in the U.S. or as exports increase, etc., right? There's only so much liquid, and there are an increasing amount of craft producers, an increasing amount of these accelerated aging or craft aging producers. And so I think what would be important is to create and solidify a subcategory, one that both protects those like Bespoken, but similarly protects those like your Wild Turkeys and Heaven Hills and Jim Beams of the world. There's another part of it I want to touch on too, but does, hopefully that begins to answer your question.
Well, what you have me thinking of is the hard work that was put into creating American single malt.
Yep.
Right? I'm just seeing that in my mind's eye as you're talking about this.
Yeah.
And really, what does it mean to fully embrace the product you're making and not have to say, we differ from that established product in this way, that way, and the other way. Mm-hmm. But instead you say, here's what we do, as opposed to here's what we don't do.
Yeah.
Because I think those kind of negative formulations of selling a product are unsuccessful.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And to be clear, there are certain protections in place already, right? With straight bourbon, right? That's got to be at least 2 years old, or with a bottled and bond nomenclature, right? So there are certain protections in place. I just think we need to put similar protections in place for those creating craft aged or rapid aged products.
I just imagine Stu wincing every time you say
Yeah,
rapid maturation, because he went to such pains in the interview to say, just to be clear, that's not what we do. That's not who we are. I know there are other brands that do that.
And to be clear, their process is different from others. So I'm saying both. You know, I really, I would argue that there are those that are doing a process to create a product sooner that are perfectly comfortable with the phrase of rapid aging. so long as the product in the end is quality.
And I think that's the door that opens to Ollie's concern, which is the way Bespoken present themselves, the way Bespoken are going about doing this sounds tickety-boo, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would happen if
Right.
someone came in who was a rapid maturer,
Well, think about...
didn't do it well?
Right. But think about the protections that bourbon already have.
Yeah.
You have a mash bill that is stipulated. You know, there's a minimum in place, minimum 51% corn. You've got a certain amount of wood interaction that is in place, right? There are certain things that are already in place for bourbon and for rye and for other American whiskeys. And I think you need to put similar protections in place, perhaps a bit more stringent, because there is that, like, you know, and you know, if Stu or Martin are listening, I don't want them to take offense to this, because I'm not mentioning this with them in mind, but I think what Ollie is talking to is the potential of producers trying to create a get-rich-quick scheme.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yep.
And you can do that not giving a shit whether your product's good or not.
Correct.
Now, granted, people are going to find out really quickly if you've got crappy products, so it's not within anyone's interest to be going down that route. However, we've all had our bad whiskeys.
Yeah, absolutely,
Right?
yeah.
It's possible.
Absolutely.
So I think it's a matter of establishing a category, which we know, back to American single malt, could take many years. But
While technology is rapidly advancing.
right? But it's on these producers to perhaps get together, similar to American Single Malt Commission, saying, here are the things that we need from a quality standpoint to ensure that our products, your products, anybody that's
Inside
of
this
the
town.
mind are creating something that is representative of this new style of whiskey that we're putting out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's it. There was one other thing I wanted to bring up, but
I quite like
Yeah,
what
go
you're
ahead.
saying there, though, and I think this is something that echoes through other episodes of One Nation Under Whiskey, which is you've just put the emphasis on the producers to come together and make this better for the consumers.
Yeah.
We haven't put this at the doorstep of the TTB.
No.
We haven't asked the government to step in
No.
and rule over this potential new category or subset. We're saying, you producers who are making it in this particular way, gather. Put something on paper, put something right. And yes, it could take many years, but I like that the emphasis is placed upon the producer
yes,
and
not the
nowhere
government.
else.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to bring up, because there were other people that wrote in, either via email or on Facebook or whatever, where they asked about the potential of producing an Isla-style single malt, or a Speyside-style single malt, or a Japanese-style single malt. I personally think that we need to be very careful about that. This is, at least thus far, whether it's Bespoken or some other brand, this is all being done in the U.S. So I think it should be very specific to the U.S. And I think that perhaps the styles of spirit within the U.S. should be focused on. I do worry that if we allow producers like this to create something that's very similar to an Isla Scotch malt whiskey, right, that threatens Scotch malt whiskey, right? And I want to be very careful about that. So similar to bourbon can only be made in the U.S. and Scotch whiskey can only be made in Scotland, I think as we're looking at creating this category, similar rules need to be in place to help protect those producers outside our country.
I can only imagine how quickly the SWA would go after
Oh my gosh, yeah.
a producer making an Isla style single malt outside of.
And, it's not to say that, you've got Balcones that produces a peated single malt, right? You've got Copperworks, Lost Spirits. I mean, we're all doing it, but none of them are saying we're trying to replicate Islay Scotch malt whiskey.
Correct.
They're creating an American single malt that happens to contain peated barley.
Yes. Yes.
Big difference, right?
Yes.
So
a whole bunch of clean words in there.
Exactly. So this is just another thing that's not just a protection for these newer producers for their own potential new category, which I really think is likely the best way moving forward for everybody, but not just protecting them and the bourbon and rye and American single malt producers, but protecting those outside of our country. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. As always, Ollie presents food for thought.
Indeed.
He's a smart dude. I love it. I love it when he's a guest on a tasting because I always learn something new from listening to him. He knows his stuff inside out and back to front.
Yep.
The fact he listens to our nonsense is huge. Absolutely huge.
It's pity. You think it's a pity listen? I hope it's not a pity listen.
It's a bi-weekly 2-hour pity listen where he just sits on his couch weeping. Why do I have to support these jamokes? Speaking of people listening and supporting, you said something interesting to me the other week.
I always say interesting things to you.
Pump the brakes.
Not just the other week.
Pump the brakes.
Every week.
About our reviews on Apple being around 90.
So this is what I have to say. Thus far, we have 90 reviews, whether it's a 4 or 5-star review on there. And that has remained stagnant.
Right.
For 5 months. 4 to 5 months. I think the last review was Tigers Rule.
Ah, yes.
And
yes.
And we haven't seen a new review since. And you and I have a plea, Jason.
Plea. I'm on my knees right now. You can see me, Josh. No.
Go easy,
no,
Jason.
Yeah, turn around.
Yep.
Turn around. Back to the light.
We love our listeners, and we love the growing listenership that we've enjoyed. People have been great about spreading the word and sharing our podcast. And that's a great way, right? That's a good grassroots way of getting the word out. However, when it comes from a natural search within Apple Podcasts of, Whiskey Podcasts or something like that, something that helps us greatly is having more and more reviews. And so this is what we're asking. We would love to get to 100 4 to 5-star reviews, preferably 5-star reviews. Once we hit that 3-digit number, we're told that things open up a bit more.
Okay.
We get more listeners.
Oh, okay.
And so if
more people learn about us.
More people learn about us. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
So if you've listened to us for years,
please.
And if you thought about giving us a review, please go ahead and do that. I'd love for us to get
That'd be
to
rocking.
100.
I would love it.
To
Love it,
100
love it,
or more.
love it.
Takes 2 seconds of your time, and if you leave a comment on there, we'll be sure to read it out.
We will,
and call you out by name with your review. So
yeah, put in some inside joke. Give us a chuckle as well as a 4 or 5-star review, preferably 5-star. Thank you very much.
So thank you for that. And then, so if, like Ollie, you had a question for us, you can email us questions@onenationunderwhiskey.com. You could even email us info@singlecastnation. You could look us up on Facebook. You can look us up on Instagram. You can look us up on Twitter. We're there. Send us questions. We love to hear. We love to hear from you, and we'll try to answer your questions as best we can.
Indeed.
Being out on the West Coast with you, Jason, being in a car, hitting traffic, hearing you complain about traffic, hearing you complain even more about traffic, hearing you kvetching about the traffic that we happen to be in.
You haven't even mentioned my complaints about fuel prices.
It really has been a blast. And as odd as it is, going back to a world that feels like the before times, it's been really nice getting back to the before times feelings, being on the road with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. Listening to the noises that come from your mouth, come from your knuckles, come from your anus.
Jesus Christ.
It's been a lot. And a lot of fun.
You're welcome.
A lot of
You're
fun.
welcome.
Your lungs. I didn't mention your lungs. Your TB coughing around
Oh my
shower
gosh.
time.
Jason, I heard a report. Tuberculosis is up 9%. 9%.
And you're 8.9% of that alone.
So listen, I raise my beer glass to you because we've been sipping on a beer.
We have. A little cheeky.
And I say thank you as always. God, that sounded terrible. And again, listeners, tune in tomorrow, April 7th, 2022, where we will have Carrie Hart and Big B, very special sort of half episode for you. And then next week we'll see you in Extra Extra, and then we've got a really special One Nation Under Whiskey episode coming up later in this month as well. So,
It's all go, Joshua.
all right.
It's all go. We better go back out into traffic now. We got to go fill that fuel tank. You're going to hear some real complaints in about 5 seconds.
Cheers, big ears.
Cheers, listeners. And Sideshow Bob.